Good morning, class. Welcome back to our last lesson on Shakespeare. Yes, it's sad. We have to say goodbye to Shakespeare today. But I have a treat for you guys. We've been talking a lot about stories, plots, biographies. Today, you're all going to get to write your own story with a small group of classmates. So, are you ready? Yeah, telling stories is fun. So, I'm going to review some of the key aspects of plot. We talked about plot yesterday in terms of beginning, middle, and end. But as you get better and better at telling stories, it's more to it than that. So we're going to talk about the different parts of plot and think back to the Tempest that we read yesterday. If you still have it, go ahead and pull it out so you can look at it. Then we'll look at a new story, the one you're going to write today, called Twelfth Night. We'll look at Shakespeare's beginning, and then you'll get to decide the rest of it and just tell it. All right? Let's start by looking at plot so we can warm up to tell our own stories. Okay, so in a great story, there's four parts. Four parts to a great story. There's the setup in the beginning. Then there's action, which happens after the beginning. Then there's a problem that happens. Finally, that problem gets solved, and that's called the resolution. Okay, so thinking about the Tempest, what do you think was the setup? What was the beginning? Yeah, the fight between the two brothers. Yeah. You could think of the man being stuck on the island as part of the setup too. Sure. Good. So, two important pieces of the setup tell us where things happen, which you just did for us on the island. They also tell us who it happens to. So there's a special word for that in English. It's called the characters. The people in the story are called characters. So this is only true if the story is make-believe, imaginary, not true. So Shakespeare is not a character because he was a real person. But in The Tempest, we have a lot of characters. Who are the characters we meet in the beginning? Prospero. Good. Who else? Miranda. I think there's one more important character. At least one more. Antonio, right, his brother. Great. So that's the setup. We have where they are, who they are, and what happened to bring them there. That's great. Good work, guys. So action. What are some of the first things that happen in this story after we learn this information? Go ahead and look at your stories. It's okay. If you're not sure, look in the third paragraph. Yes, the storm. The storm is the first big thing that happens. Right. Is there any other big thing that happens? Miranda falls in love. Good. Okay. Great. Now, we look at the problem. What happens next in this story? What makes it difficult for the characters? You can look on the second page. Yes, Prospero is angry. Who is this a problem for? The other guys on the island. Good. Yes, he's playing lots of tricks on them. He's being kind of mean to them. It's not good for them. Is it bad for anyone else? What does Miranda want? Yes, she wants to get married. That's a bit harder if your dad is angry at the person you want to marry's dad. Yeah. So, how does this problem get solved? They become friends again. Yes. Yes. Prospero forgives his brother. And then Miranda can get married. Yes. Great. You guys did a great job figuring out the setup, the action, the problem, and the resolution for the Tempest. Great work. Really good work. So now I think you're ready. We're going to look at another story of Shakespeare's. This is also an adventure story. It's also about family. Like the Tempest. Yes. So, before we break into groups to look at what story we want to tell, we're going to start with the beginning, as Shakespeare wrote it. All right. So, Twelfth Night, or What You Will, is one of Shakespeare's most well-known plays. And you can find this book in our school library. It's a great book that retells Shakespeare's plays as adapted for children. Remember that word from last time? Adapted, meaning changed? Yeah. So, here's the beginning of Twelfth Night. Sebastian and his sister Viola were twins, and from their birth, they looked so much like each other that no one could tell them apart. They were both born in the same hour, and many years later, in the same hour, they were both in danger of dying. Their ship sank on the coast of Illyria as they were taking a trip together. Okay, so we're going to stop there. That's enough for us to get the setup. So, does anyone want me to read that again? I can read it one more time, sure. Sebastian and his sister Viola were twins, and from their birth, they looked so much like each other that no one could tell them apart. So, who are the characters? A brother and sister, yes. The brother's name is Sebastian, sister's name is Viola. Twins, right. Right, like Shakespeare's kids. So they were both born in the same hour, and many years later in the same hour, they were both in danger of dying. Their ship had sunk on the coast of Illyria as they were taking a trip together. So we've got who. What about where? Yes, ship sinking. Good. Okay, sounds familiar, right? Yeah, it's kind of similar to part of the Tempest. Okay, so all together, what's the next thing that we want to happen in this story? You want Sebastian to drown? Does everyone agree with that? Is that a good action? You want him to live, okay. We need to take some votes. Who wants Sebastian to die? Okay. Who wants Sebastian to live? Okay, you guys want to kill Sebastian. Okay. So Sebastian, no, he doesn't sink. Ships can sink, yeah. But if people sink, we say drowns. So he dies by sinking under the water. Sebastian drowns. Okay. That's really sad. Okay. So we're going to break into groups now. And, right. So your regular groups. And you guys are going to think of a couple more actions, at least 2 more actions that happen. And then a problem. Figure out if Viola is the only one alive, what's going to be her problem? And then how will she solve it? Okay? Very last thing, before you start writing your stories in your groups, remember what we talked about past tense last time. Stories are told in past tense. So you each have big sheets of paper to write your stories on. Be sure to use past tense when you're writing down your stories. I'll go around the room and check and answer any questions. All right? Good work, everybody. Start writing.